myself and I'm recording now.
Hi everyone, thank you for coming tonight. I know we have a lot of families on this call that are interested in College Credit Plus, and we're going to try and answer your questions and give you as much information as possible. There will be a lot of information tonight through the state information, then also from a Marion tech standpoint. So please, if you have questions, that's what we're here for, and we'll get that answered as best as we can, and then we'll go from there. So Ellie is going to screen share so you can see what I'm talking about. That hopefully will give you some idea of what the state is wanting us to do in regards to College Credit Plus, and then we'll go from there. So if you've got questions, like Ellie said, put it in the chat box and Ellie will be on the answering part of that. If you want to wait until after this first section's done to ask some questions, you're more than welcome to do that too. Once we get past the state information, we will then be going specifically to Marion Tech requirements and details that are important if your student is wanting to take part in College Credit Plus at Marion Technical College. So we'll get started. We don't want to keep you here longer than you need to be. So like I said, if you've got any questions, put them in there. I want to make sure that we get as much information to you as possible, so when you leave this session, everybody knows exactly where they stand, what they need to do at the high school, and how to get enrolled at MTC. So the first slide, what is College Credit Plus? College Credit Plus is the dual enrollment program that was set up in the state of Ohio in 2015. It allows 7th through 12th grade students to take college level courses through their high school at a specific institution. There is things that students will have to complete prior to enrollment to be able to take part in College Credit Plus. There is assessments that students have to complete to be determined as eligible, which are based on exam scores set by the state of Ohio. And every school, college-wise, has potentially different eligibility requirements based on what institution you're looking to go to. So with MTC being a community college, our rules are different to Ohio State, for example. They're different to a four-year private school. So it's important that when you're looking at different institutions, hopefully it's MTC, that you know what requirements and what tests you should be taking to get admission to those schools, but also to be eligible from a CCP standpoint. You may apply at many different colleges. This can be a headache for guidance counsellors to keep track of this. So it's very important that you communicate with your guidance counsellors and your school representative through College Credit Plus at your high school to let them know that you might be interested in going to different schools, because they do have different application processes as well. So if you want to take courses at 3 different institutions, you're going to have to apply to those 3 different schools. So it's going to be very important that you communicate, and you'll hear that phrase a lot during this presentation, because we need to make sure you know exactly what you're doing before you start this program. You do have to be an Ohio resident, that meaning you've been in the state of Ohio for 12 months. So that is something else that we look at as well. You may choose a variety of different college courses, depending on what placement testing scores you receive through your test scores, and what course eligibility rules are. So for example, at MTC, to get into a sociology course, other than being eligible for CCP, there is no prerequisite. But if you're wanting to take Composition 1, for example, there's a specific English score that you have to meet to get into that course. Courses that you earn through high school, through College Credit Plus, satisfy both the high school and college requirements. So you're kind of hitting 2 birds with 1 stone by completing, let's say, for example, a college English course. You'll get the credit for high school English too, which obviously helps towards the high school graduation requirements as well. So 3 or more credit hours equals 1 unit. So if you take one section of high school English, which normally runs fall through the end of spring, which gives you 1 credit of English, a semester course at a college will give you 1 unit. So if you do 2 college courses over the year, you will get 2 units from a high school standpoint, and obviously 2 courses from a college standpoint. You must successfully complete the courses in order to earn the credit. That's very important. Obviously, to pass the courses, you have to make sure that you pass. It's very important that you do that. Even if students fail or withdraw from courses, the transcript, the grades that you get will still be on your high school and college transcript that reflect that final grade. So if you do fail, and let's say you get an F or a D, for example, those grades follow you. So it's important that you pass your courses. So the school year for a College Credit Plus student can actually start in the summer. So it's important to know what you want to take College Credit Plus for. Some students are doing it just to get their feet wet in college courses. Some students are looking to try and complete associate degrees. So some summer courses may be needed. And it's important to know when you're starting those courses, because you only have 30 credit hours that you can use over the entire year. So if you take courses in the summer, then you may only have a certain amount of courses to take in the spring. We have to take those classes into context with your high school courses. So let's say you are taking 5 high school classes, that equals 15 credit hours to College Credit Plus. So now you have 15 hours left to take through the school year. So obviously if you're taking summer classes, let's say you take 2 courses there, on average 3 credit hours, you'll only be left with 9 for the fall and spring. If you go over, you may have to pay the school back, or pay the institution that you're taking the courses at, and we'll get into that as the slides go through. So step 1, eligibility. Students must be eligible for College Credit Plus participation based on the scores. Here at MTC, we take the AccuPlacer. We also take SAT and ACT, and we also administer Canvas placement. Due to COVID situations, we've been able to do something internally that will help. Student scores must show that they are college ready. There's a couple of things what college level actually means, and we'll get on to that in a little bit. But they must score in the testing, as you see there, the ACT, AccuPlacer, SAT, to be able to take those courses. Each university, like I mentioned earlier, does have different requirements, so it's important to know what those requirements are before you apply to the institution. Colleges will review the scores with the statewide standards, and your high schools have that information too, so you know what you have to score to be able to place. If students aren't college ready, there's different things that we can do to also place you. We do know that not all students test well, and this year with COVID, the state of Ohio allowed us to place students with a 3.0, which helps those students as well. Or if students don't test very well, we can also receive a letter of recommendation from a school counsellor, principal, or a career tech advisor. But we have to be very careful on those recommendations because, again, we don't want to see people fail, and we know what type of opportunity this is for some. This may change moving forward. So if you come away from this meeting and you think, and when I say you, I mean the student, if you think that this isn't something for you right now, things could change later. So let's say you're a freshman or a sophomore right now, and then you don't want to take this in your junior year. These rules may change. And based on obviously COVID, eligibility assessment was impacted, so we couldn't get out to schools to test. So the state stepped in to help us to make sure that students were still able to take CCP. So the information that you're receiving today, the next school year may change. And it's important that you're asking these questions to your high schools, to us as college staff, to make sure that you know where you are. Step 2, college admission. It's important. It's the most important part of the piece, really. You've got to make sure you apply to the institution that you want to go to. Handing in your letter of intent to your high school doesn't mean that you've applied to the school. And when I say school, the college institution. Some students have to make sure that they meet the requirements of that institution. Other schools, so for example, like I said, Marion Technical College is an open enrollment school, but OSU has a different protocol. So it's really important that you know what college requirements are and what they're asking for you to complete. It's important that you contact those schools to learn about deadlines, which Ellie will get onto in the next section. But again, it's going to be key that you communicate to your people at your high school to know when those are. So once you've applied, you'll be able to obviously then talk about college registration. We've looked at your test scores to make sure that you are considered eligible. And then we discuss what options are available to you. And every student's different. Please, as a college student or a high school student looking at CCP, don't put yourself in the same shoes that your friend is doing, because everybody has different needs. Everybody has a different outcome that they'd like to get to. So think about this from your standpoint. Students must complete the first 15 credit hours of level 1 courses, which is majority of gen ed classes, English, math, humanities, social studies, those types of courses. If you are looking to get into a technical program, there is different degrees, IT, business, engineering. Those types of courses you can complete as a first level or a level 1, 15 credit hours, because it falls in the technical certificate pathway. So again, it's really focused on what the individual wants to do. So these are where it's important to speak to your family, speak to your high school and speak to the colleges to see what's going to be the best fit for you. Non-allowable courses, private applied courses, so one-on-one tuition instruction, that is not allowed. Courses that have over $800 in fees, that is not allowed either. Study abroad programs, which actually in the first couple of years of CCP, students are actually able to go on. So there is being changes yearly, as obviously this is going into the 6th year now. They're constantly changing. So we've got to make sure that students know what they can and can't take. Physical education courses, pass and fail grade courses, and then religious and remedial courses are not allowed to be taken through CCP. Grades. This is obviously the important part. Once you get finished with the class, these grades will be on your high school and college transcript. So if you do get an A, that's fantastic. It'll be on your high school, it'll be on your college. If you get an F, it'll be on the same there as well. The grades will be factored into your high school cumulative GPA. So that's important to take that into context too. Grade weighting. Have high schools use grade weighting scales for advanced placement, IBs and honour courses? Then college credit plus courses should be weighed on the exact same scale. So there's no disadvantage for students taking CCP compared to AP, for example. So people, depending on what high school you go to, it's important to look at what type of AP courses you have. Those are year-long courses. It might work better in your schedule to do that than a CCP. Or a CCP knocking out 2 classes in the space of a year might be a better option for you. Again, there is a lot to choose from, and it's important that every individual chooses what's best for them. Graduation requirements. Students may take courses in subject areas that will complete graduation requirements. So for example, if you take a speech course, that can be counted as a high school English. That is on the graduation crosswalk. So there is different courses that you can choose from a CCP standpoint that will help that graduation from high school. Students must meet with their guidance counsellors to ensure that they're meeting mandatory testing requirements for the high school. That isn't something that the college does. That's a high school thing, which you've got to make sure you communicate to your guidance counsellors about. Students may enroll, like I mentioned, the 30 credit hours earlier. Again, each unit is 3 credit hours. So it's important that you know over the 4 years, and when I say 4 years, the 30 times 4 is where you get the 120. But if you start as a 7th or 8th grader, it's important to calculate those hours into your 120, because you might use all of those, and by the senior year, you might not have any left. So it's really important that we're able to figure those out. If you're completing 120 credit hours, you should have completed a bachelor's degree or be a few courses shy of that. Normally, an associate's degree takes around 60, 65 credit hours to complete. So if you are up to that 120, you're doing very well for yourself and should have completed or be close to a degree. So we make sure that we look at that as you go through the process. If students enroll in more than 30 credit hours, that you can drop the course prior to the no withdrawal date. That means you don't get charged for the course, or you pay for the entire course, including tuition fees and books at the college standard rates. So it's important that you stay under those 30 credit hours per year. some circumstances may mean you might have to pay for another course, especially if you're on a degree path, but you've got to take certain courses at high school to graduate. And again, that's taken case by case. So the difference between CCP and high school, the testing's a big part of that. High schools tests are sometimes given weekly and per chapter. Colleges are generally fewer and cover more material. So you might have a midterm and a final at college. So obviously over 16 weeks, you've got 8 weeks worth of work in one test. So you've probably heard the phrase cramming for tests. That's where obviously that comes from, because you've got a lot more material to fit into those 2 tests than you would if you were taking a test weekly on what you've learned in the 5 days that you've been in high school. Study time, required homework, different hours based on the fact that you can normally do catch-up work for high school. With college, it normally works for every 2 to 3 hours of homework for every 10 hours spent in the class. So it's going to be important that you know what study time it takes to complete one college course. So if you're taking 3 or 4 of them, then obviously that doubles. So it's going to be important that you know what you're doing with that. Knowledge acquisition. So high school information is obviously mostly given in class. Out of class research is minimal. But college coursework, normally it's the independent learning piece that's really important. You've got to make sure that you know what you're talking about outside. When I say make sure you know what you're talking about, is because you've done the research yourself, and obviously you're putting that into your writing assignments. So knowing how to research is going to be important in a lot of courses that you take through College Credit Plus. Grades, high school quizzes, like I mentioned earlier, you get numerous quizzes, tests, homework assignments that you graded on. Colleges, there's a lot fewer. If any, homework assignments will be used to determine final grades. So again, it's going to be important that you understand this as you go through the process. Roles of the parent. This can be a tricky conversation with parents, because this isn't the same as high school. It doesn't matter if you're a 7th grader or a 12th grader, the college treats you as a college student. Doesn't matter what age you are. So it's very important that from a role of a parent, it works very different. So in high school, parents can be strong advocates working closely with the teachers and counsellors, compared to college, where the parent then serves as a mentor and a support network for the student, rather than somebody that's communicating with the teacher and the counsellor. Every student is protected by the Family Education Rights and Privacy Act, which is abbreviated to FERPA, which protects the student's records. So again, it doesn't matter if your student's in 8th grade taking an English composition course, you can't call a teacher and say, hey, how's my student doing in this class? It's highly unlikely that the college professor will email you back. So that's something important from a parent's role that you understand. There is FERPA forms that you can sign so you can learn a bit more information, but that's something that we constantly get emails from parents asking how my student's doing, or going to the high school to see how they're doing. They can't talk, unfortunately. So we have to make sure that the students are communicating with the parent to make sure that the parent is getting the information from the student and the student's being honest with them. So what accommodations are available? From a high school standpoint, parents and students work with the high school staff to determine what assistance and accommodations can be made for students, IEPs, 504 plans. Our disability services director will be coming on at the end of the chat to talk about some of these things and how we as a college help students that might fall into that category. So we want to try and help students right across the spectrum. It's important from a college standpoint that we do that. We want to give students every opportunity possible to further themselves. So if you do have any questions regarding this, please keep them until Jen gets on and she can answer those questions for you. From a college standpoint, just go back one up. Students work directly with the college staff, i.e. the disability services department, determine what accommodations are needed. So again, it's that whole communication piece is going to be very important for your student success during this process. Students can, this is a big piece, what can they do? They can do anything really once they set their mind to it and they're able to understand what they're about to take. You know, they can earn high school and college credits at the same time, get a head start on a career, degree or certificate, experience college early to understand what the expectations of college life are. And the big thing, they can save a lot of money on tuition and textbooks, which obviously in today's world is very important. But it's having that responsibility and mature thinking to be able to think that way. Even if it's just getting your foot in the door and taking a couple of classes here and there, just to see what college is like. You know, College Credit Plus was created to help those students that might not think college is their future. So if we can help them earlier, that's what we're here for. If students don't earn a passing grade or withdraw from college courses, the district may require students and families to reimburse that tuition back to the district. So students do have an opportunity the first 2 weeks of a semester to drop the course at no cost to the student. It doesn't come up on a transcript. It's completely, it's just not there anymore. So it's important to know when those drop dates are at any institution that you take courses at. If you get past those 2 weeks and there's no reason why you were still in the course, even though you didn't want to be, the high school could come back and say you owe us X amount of dollars for that course. There is 3 different funding models. So if a student takes a course at MTC, either online or on campus, the price of the course is around $160 a credit hour, compared to a course that's taught at the high school by a high school teacher, credentialed teacher, which is around $44 a credit hour. So there's a big difference in cost when it talks about where you're actually taking the course. So that's something to keep in mind there too. The grades students earn will be on their student transcript permanently. So that's obviously something that we constantly give information to the high schools to make sure we know if students need to drop for whatever circumstances. If students fail or withdraw, future financial aid may be impacted. So that's the other thing when it comes to College Credit Plus. It's a fantastic program if it's treated correctly. If you withdraw from too many classes, if you get too many Fs, you know, that institution that you might want to apply to after high school, you might not meet the GPA requirements anymore. So you've really got to take this serious from a student standpoint. But it also may lead to you being on CCP probation or dismissal, which means that you can only take a certain amount of courses if you fall on probation. And it also means that you may be dismissed from CCP, which means that you can't take courses for an entire semester. So depending on what grade you're in, you could mess up things down the line, just in the short term whilst you're still in high school. And then obviously those grades are going to reflect on your transcript once you finish high school, which may stop you going to the institution of your choice after high school. So what's College Credit Plus probation? A student will be placed on CCP probation if he or she earns less than a 2.0 cumulative GPA in CCP courses or withdraws from 2 or more courses in one academic term. So it's really important that you keep those grades up, and if you do withdraw, do it before the drop date. While on CCP probation, students may only enroll in one CCP course in that college term, which is a semester now. They may not enroll in the same subject area. So let's say you got a D in English and you are a college senior and you need that English course to graduate. You may not be able to take a college English course in the spring of your senior year to be able to graduate. Even though D is technically a passing grade, you might need a C or above to be able to take Composition 2. So if you do end up going to college and you do need that Composition 2, you'd have to take Composition 1 again at that new institution. So it's very important on how we plan your schedule, and it's just key that you pass that course. If you pass, there's no issues. But obviously we do get students that don't, and we have to make sure they know what the outcome could be if they don't, and what the plan B is if that doesn't happen. CCP dismissal, if students are on probation and don't increase that GPA with that one course that they've taken in that semester. So let's say that student does get another D. Let's say they went into social studies, for example, and took cultural diversity and got another D, that would drop their GPA again. then that would place them on dismissal, which means they wouldn't be able to take College Credit Plus again whilst they're in high school. So it's very important that students understand this process. They can request an appeal, and we have seen students reinstated, especially if it was a circumstance out of their hands on why they couldn't drop in time, or, you know, if something happened, you know, within the family, or whatever circumstances may arose to why they failed that course. An appeal can be done between the high school and the college, and a reinstation into the program could be granted. So the appeal piece is important, you know, because we do know circumstances arise. COVID this year being a perfect example, where people might have been ill for a really long amount of time and not being able to take the course. So again, we know that there's things out there that we have to take into consideration, and we do our best to try and accommodate that. But if it's a student just being lazy and not doing what they need to do in the class, you know, then obviously we can't make objections for that. So those are the appeals for probation and dismissal, and we'll go through those obviously if a student falls into that category. What expenses are there for College Credit Plus? At public colleges and universities, there's no cost for students and families for tuition, fees and books. At private institutions, there's no cost for tuition, but students may be charged a small fee per credit hour. That's each private school may have something different, but every state 2- and 4-year school, you won't pay any fees unless you were obviously to fail the course. Some expenses that might fall on you if you drive into campus, for example, that the college may have a parking fee that you need to pay for, or if you have a vehicle that, you know, transportation to a college campus, the college doesn't pay for your gas to get here or pay for your bus. So those are some things that you might need to obviously consider with your family. Can it be afforded to be able to do that? Students must complete the intent to participate form to public schools by April 1st, 2021. So this is something that you would pick up from your high school. This doesn't sign you up to College Credit Plus. All it does is give your high school an idea that you're interested in taking CCP, either at the high school as an option A or option B payment. Option B meaning that we, MTC, send a faculty member to your high school to teach the course. If you end up coming to campus to take a class or take a class online, that's option C, and that's where the 3 different funding models come from. So again, that letter of intent doesn't sign you up for courses. It just tells your high school that you're interested in potentially starting this in the next academic school year. What support services are available to a student? High school counsellors continue to provide assistance to all CCP students. College advisors provide course selection assistance. Colleges must provide the same academic support to College Credit Plus students as tutoring, library access, advising and counselling as we do for our regular students. So again, that communication piece is huge. Ellie will get on to the processes for MTC later, but checking your email is going to be very important. Student athletes, you know, we do have students that are obviously taking part in high school sports and also College Credit Plus students. It's important that you go to the OHSAA to see their requirements. Know that summer term courses for CCP cannot be used to bring a student into competitive. They can't do, in other words, they can't take summer classes to be able to be in sports in the fall. They've got to obviously stay compliant to what the high school rules are, and unfortunately students can't do that, which is different to obviously college students who can take summer courses and be able to participate. So it's important that you know what those rules are before going into a fall, and obviously if you do play sports. Will my college transcripts transfer? Certain general education and technical courses will transfer, especially from one Ohio institution, public institution to another. Students must check the colleges to confirm the transferability. Transfercredit.ohio.gov is a great way to learn that. If you are taking CCP courses and you do have an interest of transferring to a different institution, it is very, very important that you communicate to that other institution when you start taking CCP courses. If you take them with MTC, for example, then let's say you wanted to go to Bowling Green. I can't tell you what Bowling Green will transfer in to their degrees. I can give you an idea, but ideally you will need to go and speak to Bowling Green to say, okay, I'm interested in going to this degree. I have these courses. Will they transfer into this degree and give me credit into that degree so I can start 2 years in? We know that the general education courses such as composition, cultural diversity, statistics, college algebra, courses that are on a tag system or OTM system, tag standing for Transfer Assurance Guide, and OTM is the Ohio Transfer Module. We know that they will transfer to any 2 or 4 year institution. So again, if you're looking to take classes, you want to be asking, is this course a tag or a OTM? If they are, they will transfer to any 2 or 4 year public institution in the state of Ohio. If you are looking to go into a private institution, let's say Mount Vernon or the University of Findlay, or you're looking to move out of state, it's very important that you speak to those institutions up front so you know the classes you're taking will transfer in. So I mentioned earlier, being college ready is more than just being academically ready. There's 2 different things. You have to make sure that you're emotionally ready, that social transition and the college expectations. We have some students that come into courses, especially if they come into campus and they're not taking courses at the high school, they're going to be in classes with people that are coming back for retraining that might be 20, 30 years older than them. There could be conversations in those classrooms that students have never even contemplated or spoke about before in their lives. So it's important that families know what type of environment they're getting themselves into. College experience, is trying to get different ideas and values that other people bring to the classroom and make you grow as a person. So learning that side of things is a huge key of growth. We do have 7th and 8th graders coming to campus and taking classes. Is that the right thing? That's completely up to the student and the family, but it's very important to know that these are the courses that they're getting themselves into. If your student is somebody that you have to scream and shout at to get out of bed on a morning, is taking an online class going to be the best option? Online, you have to be very diligent. You have to know time management. You have to be organized. So all of these things have to be taken into context. If your student has a job or they play sports or they're in some form of organization at the high school, different clubs, band, do they have time, like we spoke about earlier, the amount of time that you have to spend on research outside the classroom to be able to get good grades in college courses? All the things I'm mentioning right now, it's not to scare people. I just want to be honest and make sure that everyone knows that this is going to take, it's going to take a lot to complete, and you have to be dedicated to do that. And some students excel beyond words, and others don't. And we've got to make sure that the others that don't get themselves into a big enough hole where they can't get themselves out of it. So again, we have to make sure that they understand that the grades earned will factor into your college and high school GPAs, and then it could affect financial aid after high school. So if you rely on that funding from the government to help pay for school, your CCP work could affect that. So again, all of these different things we have to communicate to parents and to families, and it's very important that you guys as families speak to each other to make sure that you're choosing the best fit for your student. If they're not old enough yet, if you think, okay, we'll try it next year once you've got another year of high school under your belt, there's a lot of different things. But again, please do this for yourself. Don't do it because your friend's doing it or your boyfriend or girlfriend's doing it. Do it because you want to do it. We know that College Credit Plus is free if you pass, but don't use that college free tuition thing as a driver to say, okay, I'm going to do this, if you're not mentally focused and ready to take College Credit Plus courses. Because in the end, if you don't pass and you do fail, those high schools could be asking for that funding back. Of course, we'd like to see every single student on this call take part in CCP, but we want to make sure that you're in the right frame of mind to do that. And obviously, everything going on with COVID right now, we need to make sure that do you have the materials at home? Do you have good Wi-Fi? You know, do you have the equipment to be able to take online courses if that's what you choose to do? So there's a lot of different things to take into context if you're obviously looking to take part in CCP. So what are the deadlines? We know we spoke about the letter of intent, April 1st. Please get those back to your school. Check ACT and SAT dates. Some colleges run those out of the colleges. We don't. We offer AccuPlacer here if you do come to campus. But once you get applied, we can offer something called the Canvas test, which Ellie will speak about in a little bit. Semester deadlines. The semester deadlines will be earlier because obviously classes start in May. So you might actually still be in school, you know, by the end of the semester or the end of the high school year, and college classes may have already started. So it's important that you know that obviously that time frame, and know that summer classes are a lot shorter. You know, we have had past experiences where students have signed up for college classes, not realised that instead of having 2 weeks to withdraw, they only have a week. And then they've signed up for 4 courses, they've withdrew, they're a week past the deadline, and now they've got a bill for 4 courses to pay. You know, I've been doing this now for 5 years and seen all types of different things. So again, it's really important that you understand when these deadlines are and that you know how to withdraw, how to add courses once you get into the system. And it's important that you communicate to your high school people and you communicate to your college advisors. So how do I get started? Again, fill out that letter of intent. If you don't fill that out and you don't turn it in, you will not be granted into CCP. That's a high school state thing that if you don't hand that in, you won't be able to participate. Apply to the school of choice before the deadlines. Contact the college and discuss what assessment testing is required. Meet with your high school counsellor to discuss scheduling, because you might have courses being run at the high school that fit great into your schedule and you can take from your high school. Or if you want to take it on a bit more, what type of courses that you can take at the college of your choice, whether it'll be on campus or online. But of course, obviously with everything going on with COVID right now, a lot of classes at colleges are remote. So that's something to take into consideration when you're looking at these things. So that's the end of the first piece. We're going to have Ellie go into specific MTC. Do we have any questions on the chat box, El? I haven't seen it right now. Does anybody have any questions verbally that they'd like answered? Or was my presentation that good that I answered all the questions? Okay. Well, thank you for listening to me. I'll pass you over to Ellie now, and she'll talk about MTC and everything that we do here. Thank you.
Okay, now I did see a couple of questions here. Can this presentation be emailed to us as an attachment to review again later? Yes, I'm recording this presentation and we will be posting it to our CCP YouTube page as well as our CCP website. So that will be shared out probably tomorrow or Friday. And I saw a question that, does CCP cost any money? No, as long as you are attending a public institution and you're getting good grades, it will not cost you any money. If you fail or withdraw, that's when your school can charge you. Do you have to place your letter of intent if you're already a student? Yes, you have to turn in a letter of intent every year that you do CCP to your high school. So you can get those letter of intents either from the state CCP website, just Google CCP Ohio in Google and you'll get to the page and you can get your letter of intent there, or talk to your school counselor. They typically have them available for you. Sometimes they have individual letter of intents to do. And how do you go about writing a letter of intent? It's literally a paper you just fill out, turn it in. It's really easy. So ask your school counselor. I'm going to go ahead and share the Marion Tech slides for our individual information. And then I'll go through that. So, okay. So at Marion Tech, right now, we're able to accept students with a 3.0 GPA for the 2021-2022 school year without any test scores. I will say that test scores are important because we do need test scores in order to place you into some of our courses, like English Comp and Math. You're going to need test scores. But if you have a 3.0 GPA, you will be accepted. So you need to apply, get us your transcript, you'll be accepted. If you then need test scores after that, we can place you in some placement testing to get you where you need to be to take English and math. So our step one, turn in your letter of intent. That is very, very, very important. We've said it many times. Then you're going to want to go to the MTC website and click apply. You'll do the CCP application, which I'll go over in a second. The step 3 is to test or have your test score sent to admissions, or in this case, kind of step 3, step 4 combined. We'll need your high school transcript so that we can evaluate your GPA. And then once you're accepted, you will be able to set an appointment with an advisor to register. The information on how to do that is provided on your acceptance letter along with your student ID number. If you're taking classes just at your high school, you're not coming to Marion Tech or online, you can actually just talk to your school counselor about registering for classes. But if you want to take summer courses or you want to come to MTC or take something online, we'll have you meet with an advisor. So our CCP application is pretty easy, pretty standard, but students tend to miss some important information. It is really, really, really important that you have your social security number when you're filling out your application. It is not a required field, but if you do not enter it, it will cause you some delays in the next steps. So make sure you have your full social and just enter it on the application. You'll want to make sure, this isn't very clear, but there's a checkbox that says, will you be a College Credit Plus student? You'll want to make sure you click that checkbox, because if you don't, you won't come in as a CCP student. You'd come in as a general student. So one way you'll know that is if they ask you for a fee to pay the fee. CCP students don't pay fees for the application. Your application is completely free. So make sure you check that box. Most of our CCP students don't know what to put for their program. We recommend that you put AA 2 years or AS 2 years. That's Associate of Arts or Associate of Science, especially if you're planning to transfer.
On the application we've just updated that. So at the top of the application, the Associate of Arts is listed at the top of the page. So please click that if you are a CCP student. You don't have to go scrolling, it's right there for you. It makes it pretty simple. Sorry to interject.
And then the next important part on the application is your education tab. And since you're in high school, even if you're in junior high, you're going to want to put current high school. Your end date is going to be your graduation year. So even though you may not know what that day is going to be, like, I'm going to graduate on June 6th, you may not know that at this time, but make sure you put the year. So if you're a freshman this year, you're going to graduate in 2024. Make sure that's in there. For institution name, you're going to put in your high school. So I attended Cardington. I will make sure to put Cardington, Lincoln High School in the institution name so that we know where you belong and where to request information if we need a transcript or something like that. So you'll make sure to fill all of that out. Like I said, that social security number is really important. If you do not enter it on your application, it will let you submit it, but you will not be able to access your MTC email or your courses in Canvas until we have that information. So basically, if you miss it on the application, you're going to end up having to fill out a missing social security number form, and then it will have to be mailed or faxed to the Office of Student Records, the MTC. It says CCP students must also submit test scores from an approved assessment exam to determine program eligibility. Again, because of COVID right now, we aren't able to test as many students in our testing center. So the state has allowed us to use the 3.0 for CCP acceptance. Again, that will only get you in courses that do not have a prerequisite. So if you do want to take a class that has a prereq, such as English or math, we will have to do some placement exams for you. And those can be done online. So when you go to meet with your advisor, we'll talk about those things and help you through those steps. Application deadlines. So right now, our summer registration is actually open. So if you're wanting to take classes this summer, you're going to want to apply ASAP, and then we'll get you in for an appointment to get you registered. Fall, our deadline is May 1st, but I highly recommend starting your applications now. I see a question that says, if you applied last year, do you have to reapply? If you're a current CCP student and you're taking classes, you do not need to reapply. If you applied last year, but you didn't take any classes and you didn't do anything, I would go ahead and apply again, just so it resurfaces to for us to check on your information and get it up to date. Okay, and then I don't think I mentioned the spring, but spring application deadline is November 1st. We are an open enrollment institution, so if you do not get your application in by that date, just try to get it in as soon as you can, and we'll work with you. Our classes for fall are going to start in August, so we want to make sure we get you in, applied, ready to go before you leave for summer break, and you don't have to worry about it all summer. So if you have any questions about the application process, you can email me. Our contact information is on this last slide. Again, Callum Morris is our director of CCP. He just did the presentation. My name's Ellie Hess. I'm the assistant director. And then Amanda Civi is our GPS coordinator. She's currently on maternity leave, so if you email her, she will not respond. So just email me or Cal. Does anybody have any specific questions about the dates or deadlines for CCP that I just shared? Let me read. I have a lot of questions going on here. So if you do CCP in-person classes, would you go to your local high school even through our TDAs? Okay, if you do CCP classes in person, you have two options. You can either do them in person at your high school, like we have classes that run at high schools with high school credentialed faculty, which would be your high school teachers, or we sometimes send MTC instructors to your high school for a class. You can also take in-person classes at MTC. I already answered, do you have to reapply at MTC if you took classes this year? No, you're good to go. Yeah, you can jump in.
So one thing with the application that Ellie just spoke about there with the deadlines, the longer that you leave the application process, the chances of you getting into the course you want fall dramatically. Obviously, especially if you're taking classes on campus or online, because our traditional students will be registering for those too. So we don't want you to miss out on courses that you may need to take for graduation requirements, but it may also knock you back, or we might have to put you into other courses that might not necessarily be in your plan right now. So again, the reason for applying to those deadlines is so that we can get you registered in the courses that you specifically want. Again, if this is something late and you end up applying late, we'll try and work with you as best as possible, but the time of the course might not be what you wanted, or you might have to take it online rather than in person. So there's a reason why we push people to these deadlines, because we know if you apply before then or on that day, there's a good possibility that we can get you into the courses that you want to take.
I see a couple more questions here. It says, when is the deadline for summer? Like I said, summer registration is open now, so I would apply ASAP if you're wanting to secure a seat in a summer course. Our summer classes begin on June 7th, so technically we have some time to get you in, but they do fill up quickly. So if that's something you're wanting to do, go ahead and get your application in. The summer classes would be the beginning of whichever year you're going into. So if you're going to be a ninth grader, summer would be the first class of your ninth grade year. It says, when is the fall class deadline? Again, our application deadline for fall is May 1st, but we can get you registered throughout the summer. Say if you apply, if you get your app in by May 1st, we have a little bit of time to get you into classes, but they do fill up quickly. So I would apply as soon as you can. Can an 8th grade student apply? Yes. CCP is open to students in grades 7 through 12. So technically a 6th grader could apply if they're going to be in 7th grade next year. Anybody have any other questions? If not, I'm going to have Jen Montag, our Director of Disability Services, get on real quick and talk about some of our options and what she can offer in disability services.
Thank you, Ellie. My name is Jennifer Montag, and I'm the Director of Disability Services here at Marion Technical College. And it's my responsibility to make sure all students, including the students who are coming through CCP, know about the services, especially because there's some changes between high school and college as far as how those accommodations will be implemented. So we really encourage students who are thinking about CCP, but may have a disability such as a learning disability, a mental health condition, a physical condition, hearing loss, vision loss, anything like that, to reach out to me, and I can speak with you about what the accommodations might look like and how that process differs from high school, so that you know everything you need to know when you decide to attend MTC's CCP program. Does anyone have any questions specifically about that? I'll type my email into the chat so that you all have that. That's the best way to reach me. Oh, Ellie did it for me. Thanks, Ellie. So if you do have a question, you can go ahead and email me and I'll respond. And it may also take a meeting like on Zoom or Teams for us to just talk about your specific situation. I will let Ellie answer the question about the practice test, but that does remind me, if you do need accommodations for the test because of your disability, we work with the testing center to make sure that those accommodations are in place for the test also.
Thanks, Jen.
Thank
It
you
says,
very much.
Is there a practice assessment test a student could take to help determine if they're ready for college level classes? Yes, a student could. Well, first of all, if you go to our website, in the testing center on our website, I'd have to go on there to show you exactly where, but there are practice tests for Accuplacer that you could go through, and I would recommend looking at the reading or writing if you're trying to assess if a student might be ready for college. You can go through those practice tests, and if you wanted to take the Accuplacer, we do have the Accuplacer MTC. Right now, you have to make an appointment in order to test. So you would just want to call MTC's main number, or you can email testing@mtc.edu. And I'm putting that in the chat box to make an appointment to test. That would be one way to assess if your student is ready, even if they have a 3.0 and you're just kind of wanting to see. Also, a big thing comes when we do advising. So if it's a really young student and they've never taken classes before and they're not really sure what they want to do, we're going to advise them not to, one, overload themselves with a lot of classes, but we're going to probably put them in something that they're familiar with. So a lot of our younger students start in things like nutrition or computer applications or medical terminology, which is a class where you memorize, all the medical terms for the health field. So that would be a big part of advising. Just because they're young, they may not be ready for, sorry, I just saw another question. Is that read to the student? Is what read to the student? Can you clarify the question a little bit? But yeah, I would just recommend setting up a practice assessment, the practice test. Though the practice test online, you can go through it. I'm not sure exactly if there's a read aloud button or what might be in that.
And just jumping in there with Ellie, there's nothing wrong with your student taking the test that we offer, either through Accuplacer. I know we've got dates set up in March for a lot of our high schools to test. Even if your student thinks, I don't know if I can do it, or it'd be interesting to see what my actual test score is to make me college eligible. If they are interested in taking CCP, have them test with us when we come out to the high schools, or we offer something called Canvas testing. With us not being able to get out to high schools recently, if students apply, we can send them the English and math placement test to see if they're eligible to get into a math or an English. So we're not trying to push students away if they don't feel that they might meet the testing requirements, but students can surprise themselves depending on how much effort they put into something. And that's what CCP is for. There is certain things that students don't have to test to get into. Like I mentioned earlier, they can go into a computer apps or a nutrition or a midterm or a sociology course or a history course, a business course, an IT course. They don't need prerequisites to get in there. As long as they meet that 3.0 GPA, if they fall below the 3.0, that's when the testing piece comes in. So there's a lot of different opportunities for students to get into courses that may interest them. So I don't want students to think that, the testing is the be all and end all, if you will, to get into CCP. There's a lot of different opportunities to get into courses without actually needing the testing to get your foot in the door, especially for younger students that might not have had enough English or math, high school, middle school and high school courses yet. So yeah, there's a lot of different options. So please don't think that this isn't something that you can do. It definitely is. Again, it just takes a lot of time and dedication on your part to be able to complete and be successful.
I just saw a question. Can this PowerPoint presentation be emailed to us? I will be posting it on YouTube. I don't have everybody's emails necessarily ready to go, but if you email me tomorrow, I can send you the link once it's uploaded to our YouTube page. But the state presentation, the first part that Cal went over, that is on the state CCP website to view at any time. And if anybody else has any questions, you can go ahead and put them in the chat box. It says if a student in 7th grade participates, it goes on their 7th grade transcripts, correct?
So middle school students don't technically have a transcript, they have a report card, but that will be on there. And then once they transfer to high school, that will follow. They will have a college transcript, however, that will state whatever class they took, they'll have that too. So yes, the grade that they take will move on to the report card, then onto a high school transcript and so on.
All right, well, I'm going to go ahead and stop the recording so that it's not too big of a file to upload. But if you guys have any more questions, you can